And I heard that we have a couple technologists in the group. So we generally work with MSPs, ISVs, VARs, software developers. We provide very unique go-to-market strategies for things like, say, cybersecurity. So you have cybersecurity insurance company. Uh, they've got an application. We align cybersecurity software. We get it validated with both the insurance company that this is something they can provide, and then we go to market. That's a little bit about us. Today, more importantly, I just want to talk about SaaS and SaaS integrations at a very high level, and really what that means in a business. So as a business owner, whether you're a single shingle, mid-market, or enterprise, one of the most important things is human capital, reducing human capital repetitive tasks, reducing human errors. And a lot of ways that can be initiated and justified is with the integration of different applications. So stringing together multiple solutions into one pane of glass. And with that said, it all really starts with when you look at your business, when you leave today and you go look at your business, think about where you have siloed data. Think about where you have employees that have very manual tasks or repetitive tasks. And are there ways to actually create automations that automate the workflow, allow the employee to go off and do things that are more meaningful to the business, more important to the business, more profitable to the business? And there's always this one saying that comes back to me is, you can't manage what you can't measure. So as we go through the slide deck, the things that we want to think about is, in your own business, where do you have siloed data? Where do you have people that aren't working on the same pane of glass, providing a value proposition? So just on this first slide, think about McDonald's. It's a pretty old company. They sling hamburgers, but at the end of the day, it's a global company, obviously enterprise grade. But think about what those employees were doing 20 years ago in the business and what those employees are doing today. When you go into McDonald's, there's a multitude of ways to order, mostly digital. The staff are behind the counter doing more productive things, actually preparing meals. There's less negotiation between, say, an employee and somebody who wants to order. So that's really modernized the workforce, but that's done by actually taking processes and developing them into a software solution. So with that said, go ahead.
Good question, Melissa. I was wondering, can you explain what SaaS stands for and what it means?
Sure. So SaaS, the biggest word in SaaS is really cloud, right? Is how do I get a software as a service provided through the internet to a business where they don't have servers on-prem, they don't need specialized IT employees, personnel that manage those systems, and you certainly don't have developers that are creating integrations. So what we're talking about today is a pay-as-you-go service. Things that would ring a bell would be QuickBooks Online, a CRM, Salesforce would be something like that, a Zoho, etc. So with that said, what is a SaaS integration? More importantly is, what does it actually provide to you? So let's take a SaaS integration. A very simple one would be, say, a CRM. But let me break this down maybe a little bit further in layman's terms. Think of the George Washington Bridge, right? That's a foundation. The bridge is sort of a foundation that connects two large land masses. What that's created is ease of transportation, a better user experience for the person who has to journey from New Jersey into New York, or from New York, conversely into New Jersey, and ultimately it's created more profit. So with that said, it's no different really with SaaS solutions. You think of it as, each SaaS provider, whether it's a CRM, it's an accounting package, there's a common framework that allows these separate solutions communicate with each other. So when you're going out again and you're looking at, the services and solutions that you have inside your business today, how well do they communicate with each other? And then understanding that there is an underlying foundation that can actually, in many cases, connect those solutions together. So let's talk about how that works. And again, I'm going to use some common layman sort of applications in this, but one would be an app marketplace. So, you're looking at, say, a CRM, and now you want to be able to take e-signature. What does e-signature provide as a value? It closes a contract faster. It's proven. It helps you get paid faster once a contract's been executed. But if you have an employee that has to take a document out of a CRM, download it to their computer, then upload it into an e-signature product, then go back to the CRM to get the first, last name, and the email address of the signator who's signing the document, right? Those are all human repeatable tasks. They're not really productive. So in an app marketplace, say on Salesforce.com, you can search for e-signature. DocuSign shows up, Dropbox Sign, Adobe. You can select one of those pre-built marketplace integrations and then either use them generally at no cost. Sometimes there's a small startup fee. Sometimes it's per use. Or you could roll your own. I see that we have Joe in the group here, might get involved with developing something that's very bespoke. But in any case, generally speaking, is if you can take something out of the app marketplace that's already built and integrate it into a workflow, you're now going to have a happier employee. They're focused more on the profitability of the business. They're focused more on things that are more important to the business, like growth, retaining customers, and less on repetitive tasks and tasks that maybe have human error involved. So great examples, and I love using this one with SaaS integrations. Think of the basic pizza shop. Think about a user experience where you call in once a week, you order the same pizza. It's extra cheese, pepperoni, extra crispy, right? Every time you call in, you generally probably have to explain who you are, what it is that you want, and then they have to take your payment. In an ideal world, the pizza shop owner would realize that when they answer the phone with their POS system, they can actually generate what's called a webhook, the ability to go out to a different application using information about the caller. So one thing we know about a caller is there's caller ID. So if I have a point of sale system and I'm the clerk and I answer the phone, said, hello, thank you, John Doe, for calling. I already know it's John Doe because the caller ID has been sent to my CRM. My CRM's returned information about John Doe, the last time he called, his first name, last name, where he lives. More importantly, what is the last order that he placed? So now the clerk can say, hey, John, do you want the same thing you had last time? Absolutely. Great. It'll be ready in 15 minutes. By the way, do you want us to charge a credit card on file? That's a great user experience. That's a great example of how you integrate two different SaaS platforms to create a better experience for the customer, an easier experience for the employee because there's a lot less stress, and they're able to process more orders more efficiently. So you're creating more profit. So again, some of the key benefits to SaaS integrations are really, the human repetitive tasks, improving that customer experience, engaging employees more in things that are more important to the business and ultimately more rewarding to the employee. And then the scalability, right? If you can rinse and repeat and do it over again with less error, you're more willing to grow the business outside of the four walls of it. More importantly, is that when you don't have siloed data, you now have the ability to get business insights. And again, there's SaaS platforms out there, Tableau, Microsoft Power BI, that allow you to connect into these various data sets and better understand the buying history of your customer. If you're an MSP, maybe how often a customer's calling, what's the value of the contract, because you're taking different elements from different systems. So with that said, that was really all I had to show you today. I will open this up to Q&A. Hopefully you've learned a little bit about this. I didn't want to go too deep, but certainly I'm accessible after this meeting if you do have, other ideas or questions. But in any case, I'll open this up to you folks.
Thanks a lot, Sean.
Yeah.
I can ask a question. This is Tom, Sean. Thank you very much. For a small and medium business customer in, say, in the Upper Valley, in the Greater Valley area, who would be the people who would first recognize that there might be a need to do this? And how would that play out in your experience?
Well, I think, look, we get involved with partners who deal with startups, that deal with companies that are 50 years old, but they need a reboot. I think every business owner, generally speaking, every so often, whether that's, the 3-year itch, the 7-year itch, is to really look into the business and identify what processes are broken. And then how do I utilize technology in a seamless way to increase profitability, reduce human capital, and really enhance the customer experience. Those are the three key pillars that we always talk about. So agnostic of the vertical, Tom, it's really, what's failing in the business today and how do you help that with technology?
Okay, so to me, I can imagine a company that has a CTO that probably would be thinking about these sorts of things, but if they don't, then it's a senior level CEO kind of a function, and probably reaching out to an MSP and perhaps to companies like BitTaxi to get help in this.
Correct, and that's really where we come in. So again, at the beginning of this call, I sort of alluded to the fact, as BitTaxi, we work with partners, we find go-to-market strategies that make sense. So another one would be tax preparers, accounting firms. The IRS last year, right at the end of the year, 12/31/2023, Form W-12 now requires tax preparers to identify how they secure PII for taxpayers. So at BitTaxi, we come up with novel ways of identifying how the data is being handled today, and then working with MSPs, ISVs, VARs to build solutions, hopefully around the software that we distribute, that helps enhance and secure that type of data. That makes sense.
Okay. We've got a couple of MSPs in the room here. What are you guys thinking? Is this stuff that you're doing already, or is this?
Yeah, so Sean, first and foremost, thank you so much for your presentation. I really got a lot out of it, and I think just the real world examples that you were able to cite, I think opened my eyes to how these integrations work. I'm just curious, on your perspective, because I think in this marketplace we've seen challenges, right? It's rising costs and a shortage of supply and labor. And a couple times in your presentation you mentioned human capital. Like in your go-to-market strategy, are you seeing that businesses are primarily focused on reducing the need for human capital, or working to make that human capital more efficient and more profitable in areas that truly matter?
The latter. So how do we retool the employees that we have to better fit the business and where the business wants to drive revenue and growth? And usually that's with more sophisticated software, with different disciplines into data insights and how you're using that data. So again, we'll often come in and work with an MSP, and the MSP will say, look, we continue to hire people. Our phones continue to just ring off the hook. It looks like a Christmas tree. So really then it comes down to, what is it that these people are calling about? And is it the solution sets that are being distributed? Maybe they're too separate. So every single customer has very unique products. Maybe some of them are on-prem, maybe some are in the cloud. So there are ways, obviously, to build out or engineer a different type of go-to-market strategy to reduce those phone calls, at the same time reduce human capital, because they're now working on more productive things that are ultimately more valuable to the business from monetization perspective.
That's very insightful. And how do you see AI playing a part in these integrations?
Look, that's a game changer. I use it all the time for mundane stuff. Like if somebody sends in a form, I obviously strip out any PII, but I mentioned the WISP, right? So we've got 2 forms. one that's about 52 questions that's almost about going to put a tax preparer to sleep, and then one that's about 100 pages. Either way, I'll take the data, I'll put it into ChatGPT, and then have it just tell me what is the cybersecurity posture of this, and then more importantly, I tell AI, make this human readable for somebody who's about 15 years old. So not only am I getting a very quick representation of the security posture, of somebody, a partner's customer, but at the same time, being able to break that down and convey that back to a business decision owner in a way that they're going to understand it, so that it's not really super technical. That's one example. Another example, we're working with the GSA on a federal opportunity in one of the great states of this land to come up with a solution that has Dropbox as a back end, but it has a very white labeled, watered down front end for VFW veterans, et cetera, at VA hospitals. One of my staff who has no background in coding went into ChatGPT and including Meta's own AI and actually had it assist in building an entire front end. So that's now taking somebody who used to maybe do something completely different and was a mundane task before that they were doing for the business. Now they're actually creating a ton of value and creating something where we actually have a prototype to show before we even go to market. So we're reducing the risk at the same time.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Thank you for your presentation today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the presentation. And I felt like you explained everything in really simple terms. And like you said, I love the real world examples. It actually reminded me of a recent frustration where I tried to order from this restaurant, and they're very popular and they'll get so busy that they'll just turn their phone off. So I'm like, I don't know how this solution to you're getting too many orders in maybe for staff to handle, but they just stopped taking phone orders, and you can't order with the phone. You have to physically show up, which I thought it was an accident for the first time until someone told me, it's like, no, I saw them just turn it off when they got too busy. And like I said, they could easily solve that problem with, better processes and more technology. And that's, a lot of what we do at Product Design. Our job is people come to us with issues. Most recently there was one for Team Inc. where for their toy drive, and everything was very manual. They had to sift through tons of files and forms that people were sending in, and we were able to create actually something with Dropbox. People were able to submit things online. Everything was already organized for them, and it said it just made their lives a lot easier.
Yeah,
It may wind up being that a chatbot takes the order.
Yeah, something. There's so many things that could do other than turn the phone. It's the most frustrating thing.
Although
I couldn't.
that would require, there's a couple of places that have tried that, and it's the fault of the people that set up the chatbot, that they don't anticipate questions. Some questions you can have, some answers you might give, and it gets confused and keeps trying rather than handing you off to a human. But that may get better. Actually, Colonial Toyota has a pretty good voice response system. She, and I call it she because it had a she voice, that's her pronoun. That was a pronoun of that machine. Actually understood what I wanted when I said, what service do you want? I said, services recommended by my service advisor. And she connected me with my service advisor. So she understood that concept. I was sure that was gonna confuse her, rather than oil change or tire rotation as something to do. But it may get there.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the place where you're ordering from, and then the owner's turning off the phone. I mean, there's a glaring hole there where it's just there's money left on the table. The owner doesn't have a solution. That's where an ISV, MSP really could be coming in to dial in and say, hey, look, there's other ways of overcoming without human capital. And I explained some of them in basic terms, but obviously they could be much more sophisticated.
Yeah, and I can't say it's the owner or the workers, but somebody's
Somebody's
I
like.
don't know if the owner's aware if that's happening.
The chef.
Yeah,
Or-
someone's just.
Hey, Sean, good morning. This is Joseph from Advanced Computer Technologies. I had a quick question. What would be your kind of hottest top SaaS products right now you can't live without?
E-signature is a big one because that's just white space. The only thing you're competing against is pen and paper. And a lot of the regulated, or should I say, court systems, whether that's state or federal, starting to really move towards e-signature post-COVID. So that's a great one. Plus, there's obviously professional services, so you can integrate e-signature into platforms to unify it and create stickiness as an MSP or as a professional service provider. The other one, obviously, is the elephant in the room is cybersecurity by far. And that's why we really now work with very large carriers, both nationally and internationally, to come up with alignment between the products that we distribute through our partners. And on that point, I will explain one thing to you, which you may or may not know, Joe. Last year, Travelers Insurance went to federal court with one of their insured. You can look it up, Travelers versus ICS. ICS submitted a misrepresentation on their cybersecurity application. The federal government agreed with Travelers to deny the claim and rescind the entire policy. So with that said, as an MSP that you work with, if your customers ever come to you and say, hey, let's go through this cybersecurity application, you're actually not doing yourself any justice because you don't really know what the insurance company wants to align with the cybersecurity as far as posture goes. And that's really where, having a distributor like BitTaxi, who's working with insurance companies to identify those solutions and make sure they're actually validated. That's the difference with what we do. But those are the two big things, is e-signature from my perspective and cybersecurity.
Thank you.
I'll say too, I know you mentioned Salesforce a couple of times, and our company implemented it. Signed the contract a year ago, probably implemented it about 10 months ago, and it's been amazing. It took a while transferring everything data over from our old CRM system to this one. But once everything's in place and we kind of figured out kind of some new processes, during the last 3 or 4 years, we kind of doubled in size. So we went from having about 3 or 4 people, actually tripled, 3 or 4 people to 12. So we had like an immediate need to be able to manage all the data and be able to communicate with each other. It was much easier when we were all in one room. We kind of always knew what was going on. You could even overhear a phone call. But then kind of expanding, having more people, having people, traveling out different places. It was a necessity, and it's just been great being able to set up different automations so that when, contracts are closed and things progress from different stages, people are automatically alerted, assigned different tasks without someone having to physically go over to them or even type up an email. Emails automatically sent with all the information that they would normally send anyway, with just clicking a button and updating and changing the status. So I can't wait to next year because we're just going to keep adding more, refining the processes, adding more automations. So it's been
the way that I always whenever I talk to a business owner, it's like, you've got a great business, you figured out how to make the sausage, but now how do you move on from having to employ employees and explain to them how to make that sausage? You just said it, Salesforce.com. You can put all those guardrails in place where now that entire process is automated. When employees come in, they're just focused on, what it is that I need to do on a day-to-day basis, making sure I've got good data hygiene when I'm entering data into that system, and then really focusing on the growth of the business. And that's exactly probably why you're growing. Another important component here is that when you do have platforms with all these types of automated workflows, you can now start to look for employees maybe that aren't even in your region. So all of a sudden now you can look down south, you can look to the Midwest, you can look to the West Coast and find resources that can work in the business because they're integrating into the system and they're not sitting there waiting for somebody to come to them and say, hey, look, have you gotten this P&L report? Have you done this? Or have you made so-and-so's phone call? Like those are all things that just show up in a dashboard.
Definitely great. And just being able to, like you said, not having your data in silos where, if someone's sick, someone's out or not immediately available or in a meeting and somebody calls, It's like, you know what happened. They actually have this great email logging feature. So let's say I have an email responding back, I can log it. And then someone else can go into the system, they can look up that account and, you know, they don't have access to my email, but they can see the last email I sent with them, conversation in the chain, what went on. So they kind of know the call and know how to respond.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's other novel ways too. So, you know, a lot of these online accounting packages, they sort of lock you into their credit card processing system, which have sometimes very absorbent fees. But there are ways with, you know, the SaaS integrations to get other vendors who say will provide a surcharge on a credit card so that you're coaxing the customer to move towards an ACH payment and then apply that to the accounting system of your choice. So, you know, that's where there's other value that comes into it. May not be immediate, but as you start to realize, you know, as you're growing your business and you're taking more credit cards, maybe that's not as profitable if you're leaving $30,000 on the plate every year to look at these other types of systems that you can integrate. So it's also, other than just human capital, there's other ways of applying it.
Any other questions? Any questions from anybody online?
Well, thanks very much, Sean. As you all are aware, we're gonna have the recording of this available, so if people want to take a look at it later on, Tom is gonna champion that effort, so it'll be out there in the not too distant future, both on the chamber site as well as on Channel 10. So we're excited about that. Also, we know from our last meeting that we have Roy Watanabe, who's said he's going to be going to a trade show in the week after next down in Fort Lauderdale with about 400 different IT vendors there. He's going to be our eyes and ears at the show, take some notes and come back.